As much as our society will have us believe that we should always take defeat with a bit of humble pie and a smile on our face, what it actually speaks less of is how to be a graceful winner. Because after all, that takes decorum and humility to not rub each and every victory in the face of your opponents. And sure, maybe you have just absolutely wiped the floor with them on Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for the 5th time after they boasted that they could take you to school on it. But don't you dare let any of that smug and rightly felt justice show on your face. Do not do that, right? Because we are above it. Yes? Well, no, obviously not, because it is definitely about the winning and not the taking part. So you know what? Absolutely. Why not rub salt in the eyes of your friends, family and foes online with some moves that are truly humiliating? Ones that won't just be a marker in their loss column, but a tattoo of shame all across their foreheads. And if you want to do that, my friends, then look no further than this list. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 gaming moves that are simply humiliating. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Number 10, Shedinja. With over 800 Pokemon to choose from and a whole host of others that have gone extinct that I'm sure that some science nerd just can't wait to bring back to life via Jurassic Park shenanigans in the series, there are all manner of options to choose from when it comes to delivering a massive beatdown on your Poke-ponent. And yet, it's with that mentality that there are also a ton of frankly rubbish Pokemon to choose from if you want to beat your opponent and make them feel it as well. And truly, there are fewer, more humiliating ways to feint legendaries and elite trainers alike than with Shedinja, the only Pokemon in the history of the franchise to have base stats lower than its evolutionary predecessor. Now, this peculiar Pokemon, labelled a Shed Pokemon, which actually rather suggests that it should have tiny little cute grass-type Rotums just living inside it, but that's not the point, only has one solitary hit point, but owing to its unique typing, can only be hurt by super effective attacks. This essentially makes Shedinja nothing more than a husk, but also invincible. For extra humiliation, it is possible to train Shedinja through breeding and TMs with the ultimate FU combo of False Swipe and Final Gambit. The first reduces the opponent's Pokemon to a single HP, and the second dishes damage equal to the user's own HP. 1 in this case. This is the equivalent of killing someone with a feather duster. Brutal. Number 9, a punch to the balls, Mortal Kombat. When you think of Mortal Kombat, there are so many horrible and disgusting moves to choose from that YouTube pretty much has it on a permanent ban list. However, in amongst all of the beheadings, the limb loppings and, well, just downright bone breakers, there is one move that is not just painful, it is downright humiliating. And well, that's Johnny Cage's infamous nutshot. Now, to add insult to hanging grape injury, Johnny insists on doing the splits as he hammers his smug fist right into your dangly bits, thereby not only showing off his flexibility, but also hampering your will to ever uncross your legs again. Worse than this, though, is when the X-ray moves came to this franchise, because now this crowd-popping move can be cross-examined as the ball popper that it truly is. If you knock out this knob hobbler of a move on your opponent as the final hit, you will be left with not only a win in your bracket, but also a wince on the face of your hapless foe. Delicious. Number 8, Humili-BAITIng, The Legend of Zelda. When facing such huge and imposing enemies such as Ganondorf and Aghanim, most adventurers would probably look to make sure that their rucksack was packed to the brim with all sorts of items, potions and weapons. But not our good old hero Link here, who ditches bombs, swords and bows for fishing rods, bug nets and jars. The first instance of Link laying down the law with fishy supplies occurs in The Link to the Past, during which the hero of time/wind/bouldering must face evil sorcerer Aghanim in a game of evil orb tennis. Volleying the wicked wizard serve right back with the swords can be done and is pretty sensible, but the bug catching net also works just as well. Now, this trick can actually be repeated in Ocarina of Time. This time around, though, instead of using a frail bug net, you can use an empty bottle, making for some truly odd visuals. And of course, in the emo-tastic Twilight Princess, you can of course use a fishing rod to stun the mighty Ganondorf into a stupor. Whipping out your rod, Vicar, causes the massive warrior to drop his unbreakable barrier and allows you to reel him in hook, line and sinker with a few free swipes, leaving all of these mighty foes looking like they've been kicked right in their bass hole. Get it? Fish jokes. Number 7, consider yourself skinned, Street Fighter V. Now the whole concept of cherry tapping, that is to say finishing off an opponent with an embarrassingly weak move, actually comes from Street Fighter, because of course it does. By the time that Street Fighter Alpha released in 1995, competitive Street Fighter was sufficiently sophisticated in that the last iteration even visually incorporated this part of the game's culture into its visual style. KOs, courtesy of a little bop, were represented by cherries on the win counter. Isn't that just utterly humiliating? And yet Street Fighter's ultimate patience-popping cherry tapper involves a different fruit entirely, and comes courtesy of Birdie, a punk with a punch like a Sex Pistol. Now one of his moves allows him to quickly munch a banana and then just chuck the peel away, which will give your opponent, pun incoming, the slip. And yet, if you think that's a degrading way to eat defeat, then make sure that you're not on your last legs when Birdie's idle animation flicks snot in your direction, because that will booger you up in the same slimy way. That's right, you can be killed without them even trying. Number 6, a literal slap to the face, GoldenEye. The most well-known and therefore worst spy ever, James Bond, aka 007, usually packs several suitcases for his elaborate and lethal business trips that are crammed full of gadgets, which clearly cost millions, but also somehow never cost enough to be used again. But you know what? While this fancy, high-tech kit might wow your gran on Christmas Day, and definitely does make for some exciting and commercially viable cinema, everyone who has played the N64's GoldenEye will know that while the exploding pen is mightier than the sword, the slap knocks them both off the table. And yes, I know it's meant to be a chop, but then again, it looks like a slap, and in the right, well, hands it totally is. So sure, while you can assemble a small arsenal of weaponry, why bother lugging around all of those gun magazines and lasers like a put-upon paper boy when an open-hand chop works just as well? It's also, get this, actually sneaky, you know how a spy should be, which is in direct contradiction to most of James Bond's other moves. Brilliant. Number 5, more like Norman PEEDUS, Death Stranding. So Death Stranding received a lot of criticism for prostituting itself in exchange for some sweet energy drink dollars at the expense of its admittedly quite weird creative vision, but at least it was systematically harmonious. Now one way in which Sam Porter can deal with the K-pop menace that is the game's principal enemies, the BTs, is to take an indignant whiz on them. Isn't that nice? Having loaded up on so much, I'm not gonna say its name here, just say popular caffeinated beverage, don't want to give them the free advertising time, makes this courier's pee toxic. How is that an advert for your drink? It also makes synthetic mushrooms sprout out, but that's a different matter entirely. Whipping out your chap and getting a demon-slaying stream going isn't always practical, no matter how many popular caffeinated beverages that you've chugged, so Death Stranding offers another way to weaponize Norman Reedus' urine. Whenever Sam takes a shower or spends a penny, his various, excretions are siphoned down a special drain labelled ick and promptly concocted into effluent but rather effective grenades. Now anyone who's seen the inside of municipal bus stations' labs will be familiar with the sort of damage that these are going to cause. Grim. Number 4, a god-awful smell, OKAMI. Now if you've read any religious scriptures in your time, you'll notice that divine intervention can come in many forms. A lightning bolt from the blue holy fire, a biblical style flood, or just making the old lady who cut me up in the car park crash into a tree. God, you work in mysterious and almost non-existent ways, eh? Anyway, these pale in comparison to how OKAMI's doggy god Amaterasu deals with her demonic enemies, because she instead prefers to smite like the mighty smoter she is with a magical murderous paintbrush. Oh, sorry, is that not humiliating enough for you? Well, how about the fact that she also pees on them? What is this list? Why is it this second time? It's probably best not to ask why Onigiri-sensei teaches prospective students this technique, but we probably actually totally should be, because why? And also, you'd have to assume that not all of his students are going to be wolves. But anyway, long story short, he does, and he does so for a cool 100,000 yen. Now imagine that being charged to weaponize your piss. Actually, when you say it like that, I probably would actually be keen to try it as well. Plus, can you actually think of anything more embarrassing than going down in a golden shower of furry fury? God, that does actually sound like a pretty non-safe for work search term, that. Yeah, don't Google it. And if that's not enough, then you can also learn the brown rage technique, which, yeah, you can probably see where that's going. Number 3, new to you, chrono trigger. According to The Mystery of Life, Volume 841, Chapter 26, in Square Enix's exemplary time-traveling epic Chrono Trigger, all life begins with new and ends with new. We're not entirely sure if that statement is entirely accurate, though the latter half definitely is true, at least if you're unlucky enough to encounter a rogue one in a battle. Now, the curious news in question pop up throughout every era in Chrono Trigger, with their job roles and importance changing over time. However, the blue news are violent and always looking for a scrap. Not only are they dangerous, but they're dangerous in the same humiliating way as Final Gambit's Shedinja, you know, that thing that we were talking about earlier on? We'll get there. The news have just 2 moves, each a headbutt. The first reduces one of Chrono and Company's health to 1 HP. The second deals a single HP of damage. Basically, it's a combination of moves that will have you going, oh no! And if you thought that joke was bad, that is nothing compared to losing hours and hours of progress to one of these. And the shame that you feel for having it done to you, well, there is not enough time traveling going around to make you able to escape that. Trust me on that one. Number 2, Luigi's Tantrum, Smash Bros. When he's not a whistling exorcist taking a Dyson to an attic full of ghosts, Green Mario's typical role in Castle Nintendo is pretty much being the lanky butt of everyone else's jokes. It seems that outside of hunting booze, poor old Luigi can't seem to catch a break when it comes to stepping out from the tubby shadow that Mario has cast. That is until he joined Smash Bros, where all of his strange quirks and scaredy cat styling suddenly became the stuff of Smash legends. And that's because he has the only taunt in the entire game that causes direct damage. Now, this might just be a 1% damage hit, but in the right hands, this is utterly deadly. Imagine the dread that you'd experience watching your opponent line this up and hit you with it. Honestly, I can't think of anything worse. Well, that is, except for number 1, the prod, Worms. When you have an attack that is literally described by the developers as sarcasm personified in a move, you know you're onto a winner, as the prod from Worms is fingers down the best and most humiliating way of finishing off your opponent. In a game which features weaponry as diverse as exploding homing pigeons, literal postage strikes, little old ladies with dynamite stuffed up their asses, and monolithic concrete donkeys, the prod still ends up being the best and most satisfying weapon in your wiggly arsenal. The fact that worms quite famously don't have hands already makes this a biologically impossible slap to the face, as does the knowledge that this move does precisely 0 damage. And the best thing about all of this is that you have to wriggle your way over there, open that inventory and select that prod, and then you will hear it, the audible groan from your opponent. It is chef kiss good. But the real question, however, is do you have the backbone to be so utterly cruel? Of course you do. And I'm proud of you. And there we go, those were 10 embarrassing moves that you definitely would not want to be caught by in video games. Let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below, as well as any other choices that you might have, because who knows, I might do a commenters edition further down the line. But before we go, my friends, I just want to say one thing, and I finally get to say it in person, which is quite nice for a change. I hope you are well. I hope that you are treating yourself fairly, both mentally and physically, and it is completely okay if you are not. okay. Remember, friends, family, professionals in the support industry, all of us care about you and want you to do well. So go out there and smash it, you absolute bloody ledge. And don't forget, a helping hand is always there if you need it. As always, I've been Jules. You can go follow me at RetroJ over on Twitter. And if you'd like to do something a bit different for me, I've already asked you a lot to sit through this absolute hot pile of piss that I've been spouting, but why not go check out Live and Let's Dice? It is my board game channel that I have here on YouTube. It's just where me and a few friends get together and play Warhammer. It's a good laugh. Hope to see you there if you've got the time. As always, you have been awesome. Never forget that, all right? And I'll speak to you soon. Bye.